Get more comfortable here behind this fern, and so it's about an hour or so until I go into observe noble silence. And I thought I'll record this video now while I'm here, and the sun is in my face, so I'm going to be squinting a bit. And it's quite a beautiful place that I've come to. It's very quiet. I'm just looking behind me. There's two ladies just having a lovely chat. In this very, very, very quiet place. It's not very often that when you sit, because we grew up in cities, or most of us grew up in cities. Our senses are a lot more, we tend to notice things, or I tend to notice things that we take for granted when we're in the city, because we're so caught up in the day-to-day, Anyway, so I've been wanting to do this video for a very long time, and I've been sitting and mulling what to do and what to say and how I should present this video, because I've been preparing and releasing lots of yoga content, and even some of the content was had some conversations, and I like to watch it back. There's a guy who's going for a run here behind me. Makes me miss those days when I used to run. So I enjoyed the conversations, and those conversations generally were organic. So when I arrived in the studio that I use for the small classes that I host once a week, and I've given larger classes in the past, and I've actually come to the conclusion that hosting smaller classes is something that I prefer. I preferred hosting small classes because it becomes a bit more intimate, and you can have conversations with the individuals in the class and about various aspects of life. Whereas if in a larger class, you really can't have that in-depth conversation, and I really love in-depth conversations. And for people that I generally speak to, they know that I can talk a lot. These days, I talk a lot. So when I went to learn Thai yoga, I spent all those days also having conversations with the teacher in between. And fortunately, it was in off season. It was the end of their season, and so I was the only person in the class, and that was a good opportunity to discuss specific matters with her, and to get to know each other. Even some personal matters that you wouldn't necessarily share in a class setting. So as we were engaging over those few days, I started noticing how she was creating content and how she was recording each and every single aspect of her life, a little short burst of it. And then we had a conversation. She told me, Wesley, a few days that I've come to know you, you like to tell stories. So why don't why don't you set up a YouTube channel and tell stories? And I never Lick. So, hello, Lick. If you are watching this. And she said, you know, you should do it. The thought has never really crossed my mind. And even sitting in front of a camera as I'm doing now is not something that I ordinarily would have done in the past. But over the past few months, I've gone through quite a significant change, and I want to get into perhaps some background of how I arrived at yoga, and then what led me to decide to get to attempt a Vipassana. So that required a great deal of research, and that is my nature. So I prefer to do a lot of research because I want to understand what I'm getting myself into. And I like to go into the detail. I like to listen and read things over and over and over and over. And that was quite a journey. So anyway, so she told me, perhaps you should consider it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I watched the videos that she included me in, and I thought, well, it's actually not so bad. So initially I thought I would be camera shy, but maybe I am, but it's my first, well, it's not my first attempt at that, in a discussion with no one around, because I prefer another person on the other end. But it's very different if you're doing a monologue. So putting my face in front of a camera and having a conversation about various aspects is not something that I would have considered until somebody gave me a bit of a nudge, and yeah, this is where we are at today. I've shared the story about how I arrived at this point, or how I arrived at this space, with a few people that I have these type of conversations with, and I love these type of conversations, conversations of substance. But the way that I wanted to approach this was not to be superficial, and to approach it with the right intention, because for me that's very important. I want to stay true to myself. I don't want to do it because I want to do it for superficial reasons, possibly material reasons. I told someone the other day, and I still maintain this: if the message that I share helps just one person, that is good enough for me. So even if I do yoga just with one person and they enjoy it, that's good enough for me. I don't need to have 20 people in a yoga class. Well, I'll get to yoga in a bit, because I think I've certainly myself, I've misunderstood yoga. And I've come to go deeper into it. Because the way that we practice it in specific Western-based societies is very superficial, in my opinion. This is all my opinions. I'm not expecting anyone to agree with everything that I'm saying. Some may disagree. They disagree very passionately about some of the things that I may say. But this is just my opinion, and this is my lived experience. And I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion, their own views. And if we specific commonalities in our views, fantastic. If what I'm saying resonates with you, great. But we don't always have to agree on everything. And I think that's also one of the most beautiful things about life. So let's go back to that conversation. So when we spoke, and I returned back home, I then decided, okay, you just try and shoot some content, and let's see where this goes. So I allowed the classes, within the classes, the attendees of the class to have organic conversation. And that, then I rewatched it, and I was critiquing many things, to the point of the camera angle, the lighting, all those material aspects, or qualitative rather aspects of recording, to the actual content, and then I came up with ideas of how to improve on that. And then, but at the back of my mind, I was always thinking about maybe sharing this story that I've shared with a few people in conversation, one-on-ones, because you can share a lot more. You can express yourself a lot better in those one-on-one conversations. And I thought maybe I should just share the story with I will just put it out there, and if it helps someone dealing with their own personal problems, then fantastic, wonderful. At least just one person. But if it helps more people, fantastic, even more than that. So it's been a bit of a journey for me. And this is now I'm going to let me get to the story. So I was diagnosed with a very, very, very difficult and challenging condition, a neurological condition. And it was quite a bit of a journey to get to that conclusion, because over a period of 10 years, I started noticing pain and in my face, and it started getting progressively worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where even socializing was becoming unbearable, because the pain was just increasing over time. And I then decided to seek medical help, and I went probably over a period of a year from specialist to specialist to specialist, trying to get to a diagnosis. And after a few months, I was eventually diagnosed with a medical condition that is a mouthful, and it is purely, the poor luck of the draw, so to speak. Not that any ailment is anybody's to blame. We all human beings, and we all suffer in our own way. So it was a bit of a challenging period for me, and I decided to take the medical route and the advice that was given, and that involved medication initially. I'm a bit of an obsessive person when it comes to specific topics, so I want to understand it in the most finite detail. So I researched this condition, and just to understand it a lot better. And it is a pain condition, and so there was a lot of suffering, and that just continued and just got progressively worse. And when I started the medication, it wasn't a very good experience. And after a few months, I decided to speak to the specialist, and he put me on a different class of medication. And it helped for a bit, until it didn't. And as with pharmaceuticals, when it stops working, they increase the dosage, and with an increased dose, the the symptoms just gets worse and worse and worse. And yeah, it really, it was a terrible period of experiencing the side effects. And even at the same time, I had to put on a brave face and to the world, and just, that's what was my approach back then, just to make sure that everybody is fine and that I seemed to be fine, until I had to admit that I wasn't fine. And I had been in a meeting with the specialist surgeon, and we then discussed other options. And that's when I decided to have surgery. As is my nature, I YouTube the surgical procedure, and many people will be horrified. But I watched all 2 hours of the surgery. It was quite a watch. But I want to understand what I was getting myself into. I was 6 hours in theater, and the recovery period was 18 months, and it was really very, very, very difficult time for me. After the first 3 to 4 months after surgery, I was a bit frustrated. I wanted to get back out and about and do things, and I think that was probably also a mistake. I think I went back a bit too soon. But be that as may, that's the stubborn part of me. But it was a bit of a life-changing experience, just being diagnosed, and obviously the medication and the surgical experience of the surgery. As a result, I lost hearing in my one ear. That was also a bit of acceptance that was needed. That was a very big challenge for me to accept that I no longer can hear in one ear. We tend to, when we lose certain parts of ourselves, we tend to take it very hard. And I'm speaking on behalf of other human beings, and we tend to, oh, that's so cute, they're walking down the street hand in hand. So, and even during the recovery, that was also very challenging. But I had other support structure, and many individuals, both in my personal life and both my professional life, that were very supportive. And I can only express the greatest level of gratitude to everyone that was there in their own special way. I cannot thank all those individuals enough. But even after the 18 months after the surgery, I really only fully got to some form of stability in how to move forward with this condition 3 years after surgery. And that's where I am today. So I'm in a lot more of a peaceful place, but it was a turbulent time. And during that time period, as part of the recovery from the surgery, the physiotherapist recommended that I perhaps try yoga.